I collect tuna tins. At the moment I'm collecting cherry pips, peach stones and all this kind of stuff. Don't know what I'm going to do with them, might do nothing with them, but that one's got doll's legs and arms, so it's like a piece it's called talisman, and it could be a talisman against drowning, or I don't know. And it's got round these little things called gimp pins, which are just little black nails that I love. I don't know why I love them. It's not the name. It's just I've used them loads and loads of times.
They're quite like mourning pins as well.
Okay, yeah. Right. And what's the mourning
pins? Where they used to pin things onto their clothes and ribbons and stuff. The black-headed mourning.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know about that. Maybe it's the colour of them, and as you notice, I quite like black.
Yeah. Lots of people said that the black reminds them of jet.
Yes, yes. I think certainly with this one, people have been quite surprised that they're just plastic toys that have been painted, that they do look like jet. And again, you're taking an object that's pretty well valueless and putting some value back into it by making it into an art object. Because lots of the things that I use don't have any intrinsic value. I put some value to them by making them something else.
A lot of people have remarked that that's quite a disturbing piece.
This one?
Yeah, whereas that one, they find that more intriguing.
Right.
and yet
So it's one of the things it looks like it's trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it annoys me that that's not full right up to the top, but what happens is it settles down. And because I didn't actually spray them with a spray, I painted them meticulously with blackboard paint, and it took me months and months. It was very therapeutic. I needed it at the time, but every time they were in the bigger dome that Ermansul is in. It was too heavy to carry, so I had to empty the toys out every time I wanted to show the piece, and every time I did that, we'd chip the paint off, so I'd have to start repainting them again. So it could stay like it is with a bit of a gap at the top.
Would you talk a little bit about what, because you were talking about the Victorians?
Yeah, that piece came about really because I bought these 2 glass domes in an auction, and they are Victorian, and it just made me think about the Victorians are sort of pretty notorious really for having shot and killed a phenomenal number of things, and so for me the connection with that was to get these toy animals. All these animals are almost on the verge of extinction now, and put them into a glass dome. So it's called glut because in the Victorian times there was a glut of things that they put into glass domes, and now we have this glut of plastic toys for the moment. And it's that same, just abusing resources really. So am I talking about the art enough, or am I just talking about, I'm not really being very analytical about the way that I'm talking about these things. I'm talking about how they come about really.
Good job.
Thank you. So the wands, anyway, the next, the wands, they came about through reading. There was a period of time when there were women who had power. They were called the vulva. My husband was a bit like, don't you mean the vulva? Yeah, the vulva. And they used to go into battle with. They didn't go into battle with. The men would go into battle. The women would be there to weave spells, and they would wave their wands around. And I was telling a bunch of kids that had come round to our studios for a workshop about this, and they all burst out laughing. And I said, well, just imagine if you had 100 women, and the ones have all got shiny discs on them, and you're standing and they're flashing in the eyes of the enemy, and then you all ovulate, which I did. Which I
do it again.
I could do it if you want me to. Which is something I learned when I was living in North Africa. Ovulating, it's what people do at weddings, funerals, special occasions. So it goes like this. It's really quite loud and piercing. It's a very woman sound. So yeah, I did that, and all the girls went, ooh. Really low. But yeah, pretty little one sort of waving a wand about on a hill is not really going to help the battle, is it? But you can imagine there's people standing there and they're really flashing these mirror, shiny
It'd definitely be distracting,
object.
wouldn't
It
it?
would. So the ones came about through that, and also because I, through travelling and looking at things, I really like sort of, as I say, ethnic objects and the way that they're made, and the cloth scrapped and beads and shiny things.
And are they a universal thing to different cultures? Because we've been having a bit of a debate. Are ones, do different cultures throughout the world?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the ancient Egyptians had ones, but they were more like a boomerang, and they would have, probably incantations sort of written on them. I mean, the ones that I was interested in were definitely much more the sort of Northern European idea of a one. But yeah, I'm sure that there are, like shamanic, a piece that I didn't quite manage to finish, unfortunately, for this exhibition, which was a shamanic wand, which is something different again, and it's very jangly, and it's what they would use for sort of getting into a trance or for beating a shamanic drum. So yeah, wands are pretty universal. I would say that most amuletic objects, you could go to anywhere in the world and there'd be great similarities between them. The next piece along is Pink Cage. Now I made that in 2002, I think it was, and I don't know, it kind of came about. It was a pigeon cage, and I was working with dolls, and I was going through a really traumatic period of time then, and it just kind of came together. I hate pink. It's not a colour I like. I hate pink, should I say. It's not a colour I like. But one of my sons was going out with you last week with pink, and I just thought, pink, it's kind of like I've always riled against that pink for girls, blue for boys thing. But then it's actually quite a deep, dark piece in a way, because at that particular time, it felt like I was trapped inside a kind of cage, this pink cage of my own, lack of confidence, and I mean, the little figures in there, they could easily get out, they're not locked in, but they've got no heads, arms or legs, so it was quite a poignant piece. But I also have Tim that I worked with, who's gay. He and his partner saw very different things in that, probably because of the colour and their inability for many, many years to not be able to come out and talk about their homosexuality. So it's a piece that I wouldn't sell. It's kind of like, I'd call that my seminal piece, really. I really like it. And it tends to be wrapped up just in my studio. I don't have it on the wall at home or anything, but I don't know, it's quite comforting to know it's there. It's a time I'm glad it's kind of passed, really. The piece along from that, the Black Cage, which is called Strange Fruit. Again, sort of cages, glass stones, boxes to put things in. It's quite a nice way to display something. Strange Fruit, I don't know if you know the song Strange Fruit, it's probably the one song that makes me cry. It's just it's so terrible what happens in the States, to black men particularly, hanging in the trees, and I wanted to make so it's got the red blood at the bottom and the crack in the tree, so it does for me represent a really dark period in American history. But it means whatever it means to whoever sees it, And the little figures inside are actually oak apples with garlic roots on the top. And where the little grubbers come out of the oak apple, there's a hole, and I've just poked another hole to give it to the eye. The people who bought that, I probably shouldn't have told them about it, because they probably had quite nice thoughts about it. The drawings, again, I did these about 2007, and I was thinking this morning, why did I do these drawings? Why did I do this poor little thing sort of stuck on these thorns? And it was a foot and mouth crisis at the time. And I like to go out, I walk pretty well every day, and I walk a very similar walk. So I know what's coming into bloom, I know what's flowering, I know what the smells are, I know what birds are going to be around, I know what butterflies there are. But I was grounded, because I actually live in a farmhouse. We don't run the farm, but the farm was being run at the time. And I couldn't go walking around the fields. So I missed the blackthorn, which is one of my favourite plants in spring. It's the first, beautiful white blossoms. So I read about it instead. It was Richard Mabey's book, and he talked about how the thorns on the blackthorn are the only thorn that can pierce a tractor tyre. I thought, wow, that's quite impressive. And so this series of this little creature whose name I can never remember, that came from Sesame Street. What is it?
Elmo.
Elmo, right? I'm afraid became the victim of the thorn. And then the other two on this side came slightly after that. I just really had enjoyed sort of drawing. I'd been looking at some Chinese art, some Japanese art.
And it's not bees, is it? Is it birds?
Oh, well,
It's
it's anything.
Is
It
it, right?
could be a fly. I mean, I've got some really good video which I've not edited yet of a murmuration of flies rather than a murmuration of birds, which I must do. Just standing by a stream, just watching these flies going down, just rolling, absolutely fantastic. So it kind of relates to that and the amount of time that I spend walking as I can. The amulet boxes I've talked about, really, they're full of objects that could be amulets. They could be what you want them to be, really. They're quite decorative.
Can you tell us the story about the funeral director?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Gosh. The funeral director was a guy who lived up in Shetland, and he came to work at our house. In fact, he went out with Michelle that came down from Scotland. He came down to see her. They were going out with one another at the time, and he actually built a staircase and put some windows into our house. But John was an undertaker who worked on Piper Alpha disaster. He was also, he taught motorcycle riding, and he was a builder, and because he was an undertaker, of course he had the coffin cards. So he's like a multitasking guy who came down from Shetland to work in London to do some work on somebody's house. And fantastic guy, really good guy. I would recommend him to anybody to do work or whatever. He's never left London. He just has so much work to do, which is quite sad really, because Shetland must be nicer than living in London, I think.
So he gave you the card?
He gave me a set of them, yeah. He gave me a set of those cards, and I just kept hold of them because I thought, well, I'm not going to get hold of these again. So I still have a few left, but it's nice to sort of like keep one that's going to be, have some permanence in that box. These silly things, these shamanic things, again, sort of came about through, I think I've got some pictures of just like voodoo type dolls, these kind of things, which are juju dolls, I think they're. I just quite like the idea, and I was going off to I'm going to France. I'm going to France on Monday as well. I'm taking loads of them with me, and I took stuff with me just to do some sewing because I don't like just sitting around. I'm not a sitting around kind of person, so I usually take something to do with me. So I started making these. Some of them I made while I was in France, just hand stitched them all, and then I just got into winter evenings sitting making them. And I like the fact that they look like a toy, but you couldn't give it to a tiny child because they're massively dangerous. Like that, it's a bit of a health and safety. But I do quite, again, these have been in my garden, that's why they look a bit faded. I've had them hanging in the garden in the sun and the rain just to try and weather them a bit. And I've currently got a whole set of superheroes hanging in my garden, weathering a bit, but I think they're going to take a bit longer. But yeah, good fun to do, and I like sewing. I've always been a sewer, so I have to do that. And I like jingly jangly shiny things. I've got boxes and boxes of those as well.
Start gathering.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, gathering just came about through my love of avocados, and I can't throw the stones away. And I hate, people giving blithering plants that they've grown from avocado, and they're ugly and horrible, and I don't like them. And they die in the winter, so I just had them lined up in my on my window ledge, and they just started to look at me, and I thought, go and get some mat pins and give them some eyes, put little dots on them, and they just developed into just like human beings really. Each one's a little character, and the skin all wrinkles and changes, so you get some of them smiling, some of them frowning. And I've started a collection of zombie ones at home, which are without the black dot. Piece of wood I've had for years. I keep things like that, you know. Oh, you got to throw that away. And it's a fun piece really, but it's a bit of a Anthony Gormley, eat your heart out. So I'm going to expand that one. I mean, I'm just going to keep collecting them. I'm never going to stop eating avocados until we stop importing them for us. So. So yeah, a fun piece really. Dreamtime. Again, it's finial, a friend of mine. I've got a friend who brings me, she knows what I like, and she brings me stuff around, and that was meant to be going on our porch, but it never got on there. And I just thought the two things went together, you know, the doll's head with the eyes closed. And I don't know where I got the tree sticking out of the head from, but it's just like a seed, isn't it? A thought, an idea, you know. I like that juxtaposition of the two things. And I've called it Dreamtime. Dreamtime obviously makes you think of Aboriginal Australia, which is fine, you know, that's a connection. Trophies. The first one of these was this one actually. I was up at a festival up in the Lake District, and a friend came along and said, I thought you might like this, and gave me this route. I was like, oh yeah, I really do like that. And so it was in my studio for ages and ages, and eventually I sort of started to clean it up and thought, tree roots. And then I looked into this sort of, tree roots, what do they mean to anything? And again, you go back to ancient culture, tree roots, it's like, it's upturning of the world, you know, the root is, you're taking sort of the helm, the base, and you're putting it this way around. Yggdrasil is the big ash tree that's goes into heaven, and it's on the earth, and then the roots go underneath underground. But then there was this connection with antlers and animal heads that are shown as trophies. They're a big white hunter going out and slaughtering like the Victorians did. And what are we doing? Well, we're cutting down forests and trees and blah, blah, blah. I just thought so then I started to collect more tree roots, and they're not as easy to find as you think, because I'm not killing trees. I hasten to add. These were all dead when I found them. And I actually started putting them on because my parents both died while I was doing the MA, and before, they weren't able to come to the ceremony or anything. So I inherited loads of stuff, including my mum's old breadboard. And originally I thought about putting them all onto a breadboard, because that connection of daily bread and something we use every day. So I looked on eBay for breadboards, and like 15, 16 pounds each. So I forget that idea. So in the end, what I did was, there are 2 breadboards actually, but the others are just MDF discs that I had to cut at the local wood supply. But I love the way the shadows cast. It works really well in here, actually, I think. Again, here, the shadows are as interesting as the pieces themselves. I'm actually going to do some work with another young artist that I know he's been trying to persuade me for ages and ages to do some bronze casting. So I'm going to do some work with him later on in the summer, because I'd quite like to do some of these with avocado and some of the small, these kind of things with the buttons and the oak apples and the hair and stuff. I'd like to. He just says you should, because they're so delicate, you should try and make something that just gives it a bit more value. So I'm going to do that, because it's not something I've tried. So I'm looking forward to that. This little one here, this was a total joke. And I didn't know what to call it. What if I called it Snitchy. Not for any particular reason, really. Again, another tree root. I just really liked it, and I always have, animals' eyes and things like toy stuff, and so yeah, I just rammed the two toy eyes into it, and there's a little bit of glue hangs down, which looks like it's just crying slightly. But yeah, it's just a piece that's been in my studio, but it's nice to see it out, out and about. I didn't talk about High Rise, which is the one in the window. High Rise is a book by J.G. Ballard, which again connects back to Skelmersdale and who was reading at the time. I don't know if you know the book, but in the book, the people living in this apartment block, it becomes very dystopic in the end. So that's where that piece of work came from. It's again lots of plastic toys. I think it's got a CD rack in the centre. I just built it out of stuff.
Somebody's asking today what that was.
Yeah.
It's got a CD rack and it's got chocolate boxes and bits and stuff really. So I've spoken about blood. And the next one here, this is I'll just have a look, see what I've called it. Guardian, that's right, yes. This was a bonsai tree that I had, a sycamore bonsai tree, which died. And again, it took me months and months and months to clean all of the soil out of it and jet wash it and prepare it. I'm not going to throw that away. And I didn't know what to do with it. It was hanging around for quite a while. But then, out for a walk one day, I was looking for oak apples actually, and there's a particular oak tree that's got a sycamore, hawthorn growing next to it, and rammed into this hawthorn. It's a budgie pen that's obviously been half burned, and I just thought, oh yes, I really like that. Yes, I like budgerigars. Paul and I both like budgerigars.
What's not to like about it?
And I got a jay feather, and I'm not sure what the egg is actually, but I just sort of thought that they went very nicely together, so nothing more than that. And this one, Ancestors. I mean, when I was a kid, I was very lucky, I think, because my parents really took us on walks and taught us about wildflowers and oak apples and the oak gall moth and the wasp and all of that kind of stuff. So I've been collecting. You don't get many where I live anymore. There are very, very few, and I obviously only take the ones that the wasp has left. But I just thought, I suppose about the same time I was thinking about these really, that you can make these little faces out of anything really, and they all look very different. And I collect, the roots from my garlic or from my leeks and dry them in a shed. And nails, when we burning wood, I'll collect the old nails, and I just can't throw these things away. The buttons, again, I've inherited my grandmother's buttons, my mother's buttons, the grandmother's buttons of the person I'm going to see in France. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of buttons I'm never going to use. So that piece came together through, the nails, the buttons, and the oak apples and the hair. And again, it's another piece. I think I'm just going to keep expanding it. But also, I'd quite like to make some of these in casting bronze. So I think, I haven't spoken about the little one with the mouse, have I? That again is another quite old piece. It's called Can You Hear Me? And it's just really about today, Do we hear one another? We've got TVs, we've got computers, we've got laptops, we've got television. Never get a chance really to speak to one another. So that was the first toy that I ever bought, the little mouse. And it had no eyes, so I gave it eyes. And he's just standing there, with his headphones on, standing in a big speaker. And
there's Erminsul as well.
Oh, Erminsul, yeah. Erminsul is again from Northern European pagan idea. Erminsul is the great pillar, or the great statue. And that piece just really came together very quickly in my studio. What happens with me, as I say, it's a slow burn. And I'm thinking, and then I don't know. It's almost like it's like I'm suddenly freed from thought, and I can just go in, and I made that one in an afternoon. And it just works, and I'm really pleased with it. Sometimes you make stuff and it's not that good to take it apart. And sometimes I make stuff that's really good and I think it's no good and I throw it away. And I regret it afterwards. But yeah, it was the idea of this connection between, again, the tree from ancient mythology, the silly plastic doll. It's like a sort of a eulogy to springtime in a way, with the elderflowers sort of around the bottom and stuck on it. It's kind of cry for nature, I guess. But it is what it is to anybody who's looking at it, really. I'm just talking about, that's what's gone through my head when I'm making these things. Other people think differently. There was a lady in before who was going on about Toy Story, and kind of, but I was very polite. Because, you know, I think I watched the first Toy Story and I thought it was a bunch of rubbish, to be honest with you. So my work is nothing to do with Toy Story. It's just that I use toys, and people make that ridiculous connection because they can't get beyond the toy, you know. So getting beyond the toy is why a couple of these pieces are painted black. If I'd left them with all the colour on, they'd be even more recognisable than otherwise.
It's a way into thinking about, you know, the underlying themes there, some people as well.
Well, I mean, Martin, you'd say when people, you did a great little sheet about how people come to look, you know, to help people when they're looking at artwork. Is the first and foremost thing is what you bring with you. What does it make you think of? And obviously being a toy, it's immediately going to make you think of a character. I should have brought that with me, it's really good actually.
I'd like to see it too.
So I think that's me done, apart from my one little other thing that I do when I go on holiday. I just take the dust off. I have these 3 little doll characters that I call the Bat Boys. They're basically 3 little Batman characters with dolls' heads on the top. And when I go on holiday, I don't photograph my husband or anybody else. I just take photographs of these little characters. And I try and, you know, I'll go into sort of, well, this is a tour of churches in northern France, where I've taken pictures of them, where I sneak in the morning and set them up in front of reliquaries and take them like they're in front of their little houses. They're not, I have to say, they're not very good photographs, but that's partly intentional. It's partly because I'm a crap photographer. But my intention is that they're like little old black and white photographs that you'd find and think, God, I wonder who that was, or what was going on in there.
With that piece, are you interested in the final image, or is it the process of you doing it, you know, that you're taking them on this journey, or what is it about doing that does it for you?
I think it's partly because I'm quite a shy person, really, and I really love to go out. You know, you so often see people that look amazing, in either, you know, horrendously amazing or amazingly amazing. I'd love to take photographs of, but I'm far too shy to go up and ask somebody. So these are inanimate objects, and I can take them I can go into a cathedral. The only place where I felt uncomfortable was we were in one of the big cathedrals has got a Black Madonna in it. And I really, really wanted to take a photograph of them with the Black Madonna, but it seemed a bit sacrilegious. There were so many people around and chanting. And, I kind of made up this story about, you know, which was you know, to do with children, and I thought, no, I can't do it. But I did take a picture of them somewhere else. And I have had people come up and say, you know, do you think you're doing it? This is terrible, you know. And I just look at them and say, you know, it's none of your business, or I'm an artist. Actually, that usually works quite well.
Yeah.
People go, oh, right. By the time they've thought about it, I've gone.
Have we got any questions for Jane? I'm going to put the kettle on in a minute and make a cup of tea. I've got some cake, but if anybody's got any questions, now's your chance to.
Yeah.
Put you on the spot now.
Yes, so I just
what got you into the amulets? Have you always been interested in that, or was it just literally the book that triggered it all?
It was really the book that triggered it. I mean, I have no religious belief, and I don't have any lucky charms, and I don't have any belief in anything like that. It was purely the aesthetic of the thing, and I just find them very beautiful.